You see, we did a lot of screaming and shouting on our first 2 tours, and trying to accomplish a lot of changes in the American music scene. And it all seemed so easy, and we said it so many times that a lot of the important things that we were saying on the first tour, we don't really feel that it's necessary to scream and shout about
What
nowadays.
do you mean scream and shout? I mean,
Well, when we first came over here, we were still full of the enthusiasm of the English New Wave, the punk movement in England. We really had a high regard for it. We felt that it was a good thing, and America could do with one. And when we got over here, we found all the media were very reactionary, with the beards and long hair and bell-bottoms all going, hey man, they're out of tune, and let's listen to, all this stuff. It was just crap. It was really boring over here, and the New Wave had failed. The Sex Pistols had failed to bring it over here. Well, I think that the issues that they were talking about, the socio-political issues that they were screaming about, were not relevant here so much, and musically they didn't cut it. So at first there was we had a lot of arguing to do. We had a lot of explaining to do. That America does need something new happen, does need a revolution. It doesn't have to be a punk revolution, but it needs a revolution of some kind. Now it's all happening, and we don't have to talk about it so much anymore. That's why we sit here and giggle and stammer and mumble and make stupid jokes. Did you ever see any films of what happened in England? When
I saw a few of them.
Like in 1977, when these clubs opened in London, the Roxy Club and the Vortex Club, the punk gatherings, it was unbelievable. Just everybody there was dressed like Frankenstein and Dracula.
Right. Yeah.
And it was just a whole new trip. And it was just totally iconoclastic. There were at all the old fuddy-duddies in the bands that I'd been working with, the professional musicians who were all just deadbeat, boring slobs, and all they talk about is having hits and getting on the radio and conforming to the music industry standards, and that's all they think about. And Andy and I both worked with that kind of group, and we were both disenchanted with that. And when we saw this other thing happening, this completely different scene that didn't thrive on the BBC, which was just closed door and really lofty, and the power being wielded by the music press and the radio and everything, this new scene was just independent of all that. They didn't care about that. They were selling records, they were having fun, they were having really wild, exciting gigs, they were having their own stars, their own heroes, their own happenings, their own values, fashions, their own look, and they just totally didn't, they put down and slagged off the older generation a lot, but that wasn't really the point. It's just when kids rebel, they have to say why they're rebelling and what they don't like about the other generation. And I'll have another go at telling your story about how the group was formed. In 1976, I was playing in a group called Curved Air, and it was all tied up in lots of musical hassles, money hassles, and I figured that I wanted a neat, tight little group, 3-piece, and I remember this great guy I'd seen in Newcastle was playing in a jazz group. That was Sting. And all the other guys in the group were like 35 and 40, and it was, really, interesting group, except the real buzz was coming to the city. And so I called him up in Newcastle and said I wanted to form a rock and roll group. Rock and roll, he said, because he was a jazz musician. Jazz musicians hate rock and roll. So I talked him into it and talked him into coming down and checking out some of these punk gigs. And those punk gigs were really wild. And this is a person who had played jazz and stuff, who was playing with older people all the time, the same way I was, had the same boredoms and stuff like that, and was prepared to jump into this exciting world of loud, brash music with these kids going berserk. But was somebody coming from a complete jazz background who hadn't even been into Jimi Hendrix, which for me is highly strange, and for me was really just
Jimmy. I'd never heard of Jimi Hendrix.
A whole different kind of spark, That's why I think when Sting writes rock and roll songs, well, I hate using this word rock and roll. I hate rock and roll.
My father was into
rock and
roll.
The term rock and roll.
Because
My
Bob
father was
Seger
into rock
sings
and roll.
about it. He's all these rock and roll this and people who shout rock and roll.
The term is redundant. It's absolutely redundant.
I don't know.
It's used in so many different forms. Obviously,
Yeah,
I
wish I could think of some kind of label that I fancy, but I don't.
Haley.
Yeah,
It's not
and nowadays it's Bob Seger, and he sounds like. But the point was that when all this, like Sting came completely from a jazz world straight into this energy buzz, and that's why I think it's an important difference to our sound that we eventually ended up with. And then when Andy joined the group with his ideas on electronics and stuff, all the gadgets we use, like each one of us has a Roland Echo machine, and Sting's got his bass foot pedals and everything, and Andy's got his board with Mutron, phase shifter, compressor, flange crevulator, and hypermodulator, and all sorts of stuff. And I think Andy pretty much led the way with that.
you obviously put on.
So really, the
a
interesting
lot of
thing
sound
about
for
us
three
getting
people.
together is that we're all from very different areas of music, and together we actually an original group. I think if we'd all come from the same background, we'd be in trouble.
For 2 years, the police didn't pay us a penny. We supported ourselves through sessions. We actually lived quite well. We're not poor kids, poor musicians or anything. And suddenly, the police is a big gold mine for us. But
Is
the
it
next
really
album,
a big gold mine for you?
you better believe it.
Are you guys really doing
But our
that?
next album, we're going to take as many chances on that as we did on the first album. It might not be a hit. We might, the police might be forgotten by our next album. That's not really important to us. What is important is that we still enjoy playing with each other, and that we still have ideas that each other are coming up with that are fun to explore and to play.
I do appreciate your candor, and I really
Candor?
think, no, really seriously. This is the final gig before you go back to England.
No. Go to Munich tomorrow in Germany.
I'm sorry. Okay, you go to Germany. Then you're doing some European things. then
We're
before
just
you
doing
go.
2.5 days of television. It's a television special that we're doing.
You guys really opened up a little bit, and I appreciate that. And I hope that.
Well, we enjoy
I hope
talking.
that the police come back and do exactly what you've done before, and that's rock and roll to your fans. Thank you.
On Wednesday, one of the most exciting new bands to emerge over the last few months came into Capitol to record a session. The Police recorded 2 brand new numbers for us. First one called Message in a Bottle, and the second was Bed's Too Big Without You. Well, as their gear was being set up in our music studio, I had a brief chat with the lads. So, what's been happening?
We've been conquering America.
Yes,
and
Tom.
reminding them where all the best rock and roll comes from, which is England.
And tell me about this conquering of America, because we got reports back that things. I mean, the noise you hear in the background, by the way, is all the gear being moved into the studio.
Well, when we got there, when we left there, we left a plaque on the Statue of Liberty saying, "We came, we played, we cleaned up."
Did you expect that?
No, not really. I mean, every band, musicians are all optimists. I mean, every musician in the world expects to,
You
do
can't,
everything.
ever depend on anything.
But you can't count on it. We
Rock
wouldn't
and
have been
roll.
surprised if it hadn't happened.
And where did the police go from here? I mean, what new stratos?
Oh, we're going on a world tour. Actually, let's tell you about this world tour. It's neat.
Yeah.
We're sick of talking about
It's a
history.
neat little
It's a neat
tour.
little
Neat it
tour.
is.
We're sick of
It's
talking
not
about the
neat at
past
all.
of the group and our romantic beginnings and everything. So let's talk about what we're going to do. We're going to do a world tour. We're going to do, after doing Japan, we're going to do Singapore and Formosa and, well, I doubt we'll
Hong
get into
Kong.
that. Hong Kong,
We're asking to go to Peter.
Cairo, Calcutta, Bombay, Istanbul, Athens, and all sorts of neat places like that. That's what I meant by neat, you see.
That would be really good.
You
You've
see
never
the
been
thing-
to any of those places before?
Well, I've been to some of those places, but not all of them. And the point is that most groups, because they're committed to the money-making huge industrial scene, have to go and work the markets and stuff. But we've worked the markets solidly for the last 7 months, so we can go off and we can do a tour that's fun to do.
In a moment, Joni Daly will spend some time with the police, and you'll get a chance to find out a little bit about what the group is all about. So keep it on K94.
Been here about a week and a half
In the United States?
in the United States.
What's your name?
Andy.
Okay, and where were we? Oh, okay. When did you come to the United States? A week and a half ago.
About maybe 2 weeks ago we came over.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact
In
date.
Virginia, we seem to get all the groups from Europe really fast, like the first when they're just starting their tours, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. Well, in fact, it's the first time we've actually been in Virginia. We've passed through West Virginia a few times. Played in Washington a year ago. It's the first time we've been down this strip of the coast.
Oh, I see. So you've been touring the country for some time.
This is the 4th tour.
Okay. Yeah.
So in 1 year. We started a year ago.
You guys I think that you turn punk rockers, are you?
No, we're not.
You are? Yeah.
Do we sound like a punk rock band?
I don't really know, to tell you the truth.
Oh, well, no, we don't.
I mean, I couldn't really
You don't know what punk
determine
sounds
that.
like?
I think I do, yeah.
No, well,
But,
this
I
is
don't
nothing like what
consider myself an expert.
The band was engendered in the New Wave. At the beginning of the New Wave, it was started when the punk boom hit London. It happened at the same time. We started then. And we have strong links and identity with the New Wave, and a lot of people in America identify us with that.
Oh yeah, it's I certainly
But,
don't consider myself to really know the trends at all from that
But the
stuff.
kind of music we play is more sophisticated. But the thing is, it's quite new sounding anyway. It's quite original, and it's not a recreation of Led Zeppelin, for instance, or Genesis.
When you say it's more sophisticated, is that what you said?
Yeah.
What do you mean? It's
Well, if you were talking about punk music is much simpler. It's all very hard and aggressive and harsh sounding, and the melodies have a very simple, and obviously Sting is capable of singing much more complex melodies, and he's a great singer.
He has an
with a great
excellent
range.
voice, yeah.
Yeah, he's a marvelous singer.
Really.
So we're all capable of doing, a lot of things musically. So for us to just play straight punk music would be dishonest.
Okay, like from the standpoint of being musicians, then you think that you're a little bit more sophisticated.
Yeah, but I mean that's not a virtue. It's just the way we play what we want to play. We don't set out to be sophisticated because it's a better thing to do. It's just that we are, and we do what we do best.
So what do you consider new wave to mean and to be? Just like a cleaner rock and roll?
No, it's a little bit more complex than that. There's a lot of answers to that question. It's a new attitude. It's a bands that are more forward-looking, try to make new music without recreating the old styles of the past. Like, four new guys come together and never played before. They don't try and recreate a Led Zeppelin sound. They make new music.
Yeah, it's really
and
nice.
it's the whole thing started with the punk movement in London, and it was a movement against everything that had gone before. The sort of softening up and decaying process of rock music that had happened, especially in the late 70s, and it was a reaction, a very organic reaction against that. And
really super synthesized type music, is that what you mean?
Synthesized?
Okay, well, I mean the music towards the end of the 70s.
Oh, I see, yeah, that kind of thing, ultra, sort of dinosaurs, the huge sort of pomp rock orchestrations.
Yeah, everything got
Funk
really
was, like a scream against that, and it grew out of London.
Okay, do you think that it has anything to do with the social situation in England?
I think it does, because the economic situation in England is, certainly when punks are, is a much more desperate situation than America.
Yeah.
A lot of kids would leave school, with all their exams completed and be out of work immediately. There's a lot of unemployment in England, and things were quite hard there. And, that combined with, the fact that there are a whole new generation of 16-year-old kids who didn't grow up with the Rolling Stones, who were like 5 years old when the Stones were happening, who just don't know about those.
Yeah.
So they, the Stones are too old for them, and the Who, and all you name all those bands. So they had to get their own bands. So the whole thing started all over again. It's a cycle. It's what rock music's about. The thing is, rock music started in the 60s, so we're only really beginning to see it all for the first time. It hasn't been going on for 15 years. We're only just starting to see that there is a cyclical process in it, and it's really the age of young record buying.
I think one of the things that I've noticed in this country, I don't know if you followed this all going to America, but just by the very fact that the economic situation, social situation in this country is a little bit different.
It's getting tougher over here.
Okay, it's starting to get tougher, yeah, but it seemed like there was a lot of reaction to punk music that was kind of negative in this country. A lot of people just said, where are these people coming from? And, it just seems really nowhere type headspace to be in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, they couldn't understand it because the difference is, it grew out of a very localized situation in Europe, in England, as I just explained, the economic situation and the movement, and it came out of London. Yeah, and London is a sort of a hermetically sealed world. It's unto itself, It's hard to explain unless you live there and you can know it, the feeling that is there. And it just didn't translate to America. What the Americans got was, the Sex Pistols coming across and just freaking everybody out, and it was extremely abrasive, violent, and everything else, and totally non-melodic. The music was very harsh and abrasive, and American radio stations just couldn't handle it because it just didn't fit in with their format, their radio waves.
It just didn't sound,
and they wouldn't play it because they didn't want to lose their ratings. So the new wave got a very raw deal in the beginning, and nobody would play it. What happened for us was that we came over unheralded completely without any record or anything, and we were tagged as a new wave band, and we started headlining around clubs about a year ago here, with Roxanne being played very heavily in Boston as an import. Roxanne was a record from a so-called new wave group, which the American radio station seemed to be able to get into. It was like the first song they had found, which they, gave them a sort of access to the new wave scene.
Yeah.
And it sort of fit in a bit with their thing. But we hadn't done anything. We hadn't compromised ourselves. So it was a good situation for us. It was a good situation for them. And I think in some ways we were one of the first bands to help break the new wave in America.
Yeah, it seems like it's really getting a lot more accepted.
In a year, we've seen a big change. Yeah, the thing itself has changed. It hasn't exactly mellowed out, but it's spread. More. There's been more new bands trying more experimental things. It's gotten healthier and it's broadened its horizons somewhat. So bands like Blondie, they're not. I don't really even call them a new wave band anymore. Americans call bands like the Cars new wave, but in England they definitely don't. No, they're like an old rock band as far as I'm concerned.
More pasteurized.
They're very good, but but they're not new wave.
What do you think about, say, Devo? Are there any American groups that you like?
I like Devo, actually. I hated them at first. Eventually I started listening to them seriously.
If you want to talk about a cultural phenomenon, they're really big city America.
Well, they're totally contrived as far as I'm concerned. The whole thing is incredibly contrived. And, I have a cynical view of it in the way it comes down to making more bucks in the end. However, the band rocks, and that's the main thing. When you listen to them, all the Devo shit means nothing to me because that's bullshit. It's either they make good music or not. They don't write good songs. They contrive tracks. They can put them together. They're clever, But if you really listen to their stuff, there's very little in the way of real material. So it's the way they put it together.
Like from a musical standpoint, you don't think that they're really contributing much? Is that what you mean?
No, I don't. But I think that they're a good rock band. That's the surprising thing. They can actually they rock when they play. I like the records, and I've got the 2 albums, and I like them.
So you think the Police are contributing musically?
Well, it sounds pompous, just make that.
Well, in a way, that's kind of what you were just saying.
Well, I hope we are. I hope that our whatever contribution we make would make people realise that you can do things for yourself. You can, you don't have to go the standard route that all bands have gone. You don't have to copy other bands, and it can be a wise decision, and even a long-sighted one to go and stand out on your own into something you believe in. If it's good enough, you'll eventually get there.
So you think the Police have been doing that for a long time? Like, how long have you three been together?
We've been together 2 years. Yeah. The first year, nothing happened for us. We didn't gig, we didn't do anything. We just worried. At the end of the year, we'd had a minor success with Can't Stand Losing You. It got a 42 in the English charts. That gave us enough leverage with the record company to borrow enough money to come over the States for the first trip and sort of promote ourselves with our record out over here. And then when A&M Records saw us, and they got very excited, and they decided to release Roxanne. It went in the charts. The album went very high in the charts. And we had a hit single and a hit album in America. That all bounced back to England.
So that's how it happened.
Now we're number 1 in England.
I like that.
Album and single. And that's the way it goes. We've had an incredible success story in the last year.
Yeah, okay.
But we did everything the hard way.
Yeah.
What people would term, but
I see what you're saying. You didn't follow.
We didn't do the standard thing. No, like when we came over, people held up their hands in horror that we'd come over without any product to promote. But that wasn't the way we were looking at it. So we wanted to come and play and see, because it was a challenge. And we came and we roadied for ourselves and we had a good time and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. And it turned us into a band.
That's really nice. So, I had a question in my mind that really followed with that. So when you first came over, that's what I wanted to know. Did you ever have inklings in your head that you were really going to break big? Or, when you were first here, did you think about that?
Oh yeah, I think when the 3 of us came together for the first time, and we started playing together, I think that we all felt that this was going to be a great band, and that there were no weak links. There was only 3 of us. We all liked a 3-piece band, and there were no weak links. Everybody was very strong on his own. Everybody had enough ego to drive the band forward. And we all felt that, and we thought that if we just sat it out long enough, we would eventually make it, When you say that, you never know quite. Our album was released on Friday in England. It went straight in at number 1. our singles has been number one at 3 weeks. It came in at 8 and went to number one the second week. So that's how strong we are now. But I mean, that's incredible. I mean, to do that. And we're the first number one A&M ever had. So
that is really nice.
We never thought it would get that heavy, you know.
You didn't feel like you compromised yourself?
We've never compromised ourselves at all.
That you don't have to?
No.
What do you think about, like, the record business, you know, and just the whole music business? It's just, like, such a huge thing.
Well, generally, I think it's, you know, it's a real jungle, and it's been run on the wrong lines for a very long time, and I think that's why it's starting to fall apart now. It's getting really bad in America. I mean, all the record companies are really suffering. Even our record companies sacked 35 people in the last few months. You know, there's a real tightening of the belt, but I think it's because they've been going along with the veils over the eyes. They've been promoting the wrong kinds of things and spending too much money, you know, spending thousands making albums. And
so you see it as a good trend then, that things are falling apart?
I think, yeah. Well, yeah, it's a sort of
a necessary thing that has to happen before something can be rebuilt.
Well, you could look at it that way, like, you know, the darkest hours those before dawn, but
right.
That type of thing, yeah. A lot of cliches that apply, but the main thing is that a lot of new bands get a chance. You know, companies could think small and try promoting, taking a few more chances. It would be a much healthier thing. And I think the new wave has managed to accomplish that to some extent, certainly in England, because there are now millions of small labels and lots of groups get a chance to get out on the streets with records, whereas they never did before. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make it or anything. It gives them a chance to be heard. Whether they make it or not after that is another question.
You know, well, that's another aspect of what you were talking about. Like, maybe if you talk about second generation, like when the Rolling Stones hit and the Beatles hit, things were not near as complicated as they are now.
That was the beginning, you know. I mean, that was a long time. That was when rock and roll really started. It really sort of started in the 50s. But when it really became an industry was when the Beatles did the whole, you know, and there was a worldwide revolution in the, you know, early 60s. But those days are gone, you know. There's not as much money around now, and you know.
It's all going to oil and gas.
That's right. Yeah.
Apparently, yeah. So do you think like social situations and philosophies have a lot to do with what kind of music happens?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's certainly why the punk thing took off in England. You know, it was pretty much of a direct reflection about that.
Did you ever consider yourself to be at a point where you were a punk?
No.
You never did? What about your own personal, you know?
No, there's a certain amount of identifying with it because of the... I mean, there are certain values and attitudes that one has. I mean, if you want to say that, I've considered myself to be that all my life. It seems now that the views I've always held, you know, and this goes for all members of the band, it's probably why the band is successful. The views that I've always held have suddenly become fashionable.
You find that there's also other...
You know, I'm able to make them work. You know, it's like my time has come, or, you know, our time has come. I think there are those kind of elements in it, you know. I mean, it might sound pompous to say that, but I've always hated, like, this sort of syndrome of spending millions making albums and that huge sort of softening, sort of luxurious process that seems to go on when bands become successful, because I just don't see it. There are so many groups. I've had so many friends, because I've been playing a long time, have fallen by the wayside, and a lot of them have died. And
what do you think is the cause of that kind of disintegration?
Believing the myth as rock and roll, you know, believing the myth and forgetting about the playing and the music and what it's really about. There's so many guys seem to lose sight of that.
Losing their creativity.
Yeah, you know, and they get carried away with the whole thing and forget about what it...
Well, it's really easy in a situation like that.
Oh, it's very easy. I could see it happening to me overnight. You know, we're in that position now where we could just blow it.
Yeah.
But we don't, you know. We take the piss out of each other too much for it to happen, I think.
Yeah.
You know, but in England, it's like Beatlemania for us at this point. So we're really tasting that kind of heavy success. Not so much here, you know.
Yeah.
But in England, you have to see it to believe it.
The kind of craze you get from too much choice. Like everything
There's so much adulation from so many people. My house is besieged in London now. All
is that right?
Yeah, it's really heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds silly sitting here in Virginia talking about it. When I live in London, I have kids at my house all the time.
Yeah. So what does that do to you? What has it done to you so far?
I love it.
Yeah.
But I don't really. Yeah, it's great.
It would be difficult not to.
the thing is not let it go to your head, you know.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that like it's gone to the head of other rock and rollers before?
Yeah, it does, and a lot of people get caught up with it, and it's very easy to get caught up with it. I mean,
do you still like the Rolling Stones? Did you ever like them?
Yeah, I've always thought they were a really good band. I mean, I think they've become passé, and I think their best days are over. Unfortunately, I think they're really on their last legs. I just think they've done too many drugs for too many years.
Yeah.
You know.
What about you guys?
You're very clean.
Did you guys try to stay
Mother's milk.
healthy? Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we're not virgins.
Yeah. Oh.
But
well, we got that done. We're good now.
Yeah. So come on, girls.
Is that what you're hoping in America? Are American ladies looser than ladies in England?
They tend to be voracious, actually.
They tend to be voracious?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's compared to girls in England.
Well, English, you know, there is a certain amount of English reserve. I mean, they get, depending on who you are, you know, they can get pretty wild in England, but American,
Yeah?
right,
You
it's not
find
very
that
nice,
things
you know.
I think maybe it's just because we're English.
Is that it? Yeah.
We get crazy for our British accent.
Not to mention our bodies.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, geez. Maybe it's just because
Don't blush.
American girls are naturally looser.
Oh, I hope so. We'll see you come down to the beach tonight. Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? What's your philosophy of life? You were saying that...
My philosophy of life?
Well, what you were saying...
Communism.
You were saying that you think the stuff that you thought all your life is finally becoming fashionable, okay?
Yeah.
And that's... Okay, there's like a lot of really adoring people there.
Well, I'm sure...
Right, you know, there were some people who were like really into you, and I can compare that to people really being into the Beatles and stuff like that, right?
You can if you want.
Right, I will.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
So anyway,
Yes.
what are those things that you think are finally coming into fashion? Those things, those beliefs?
Well, like I was saying just, you know, you were talking about sort of policies of running a successful rock band.
Yeah.
You know, and get on with the job. Yeah, you know, and not believe all the no, not go back to the 60s at all. That's what we're trying to avoid. But not to believe in the excess, you know, and everything that's piled on top of you. You know, take it as it comes. But you've got to keep some part of your own person private, and you know, that's the thing you've got to
hold on to yourself.
Hold on to, and don't lose sight of that at any time. If you really believe that you're an artist, you know, you must hold on to that and keep the work. I mean, to me, the main thing is to work, you know, because that's what I enjoy doing. I like playing the guitar, I like making music, I like being in a creative situation with people I like, and I want to do that for the rest of my life, and I don't want to get it blown away in 2 or 3 years of heady success. You know, I mean, that success will set me up for the rest of my life, but you know, I want to keep playing and doing whatever I want to do, you know.
Well, a lot of people probably have the attitude that they're going to make it big, make some bucks, and then their life's going to be okay, you know.
No, I don't see it that way at all.
Everything's going to smooth out, you know.
No,
you're going to be able to live
the world situation is getting too tight to believe that, you know.
You think it's people are getting into more existential type head, like get it now, you know, go for what it is that you really want and forget about the future because it might not be.
I don't forget about the future at all, you know. I hope that the money I make with what we're doing now will make the future easier, but I mean, I certainly don't intend to rest on any laurels in the future. I want to keep playing and, you know, earning money, you know.
And growing, being gainfully employed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what do you think's going to happen in the 80s musically? What do you guys think?
Difficult to say. No, I mean...
But everybody asks you that, right? If you get in.
Yeah, well, it's very difficult to say.
The 80s are only a few months away.
Is that right? Yeah, I guess that is.
The police are going to happen in the 80s.
Yeah, we'll be around.
I agree.
So
I think electronic music will come very much into the fore in the next few years. That's one specific thing. Yeah, I think there'll be more and more, you know, synthesized music. I think it's inevitable.
Yeah. Electronic madness being what it is.
No, I think it will become
maybe computers will start
more artistic, and it'll become more and more refined. You know, it's the age of the silicon chip, and that's going to take over a huge part of our lives anyway, and it will manifest itself in all kinds of ways in the music industry. Also, with video discs are going to change the whole rock industry incredibly in the next few years.
Like these digital recordings that are happening now.
That digital recordings, video discs.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen in England in the 80s? Do you think England is going to
I hope that England... I hope it will rise from the ashes. It's difficult to say because it's in such a mess right now, but...
It seems to be.
being English and.
Yeah, we enjoy being in a mess. We like being in a mess.
You think that's part of the national character?
It's a great country, it's a great nation, and.
So you think it's going to survive?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think America's following England in terms of what's happening in England or behind?
Yeah, America's overseas.
Yeah, just like England.
Good night.
Goes faster.
Faster than England?
America is consuming itself.
Yeah. Is that what you notice?
Yes.
You've been here for what?
I've been here a lot. I've been here most of this year.
Yeah. Is that what you think about
I
America?
think America's slipping.
Yeah, how so?
It just is. You can feel it. You can see it in the atmosphere. You can see it in the way
Like a dragon eating its own.
you can see the way the kids are just getting totally out of it. They don't want to be responsible anymore, so they get drugged at the eyeballs.
What's happening is that America is actually turning into a quaalude. As you can see it, the shape of the country is sort of turning.
Yeah. Do you think they're simply following in Britain's footsteps?
No, there are no quaaludes in Britain.
Oh, yeah?
Just good beer and a lot of pogoing.
What's that?
Jumping up and down.
Oh, well, I know what that is. Do you think America's in actually worse shape than Britain?
It's sort of descending, actually. It seems to be getting this way.
There's no comparison. America is about 5 times healthier than anywhere in Europe, apart from maybe Germany.
Economically speaking, yeah.
Economically and socially, America is one of the most healthy places in the world, but it's not improving. It's going down a bit because, like they were saying, all the younger generation is all quaalude and drugged out and don't care and don't participate anymore.
Yeah, but you think that's dissimilar from the way it is in other places, like in Europe?
So at least America, the have a nice day attitude really stinks. It really is ugly.
Okay.
I mean, you get told to have a nice day everywhere you go.
Yeah.
But it is effective. People in America work harder and generally have nicer days as a result of it. May be a phony attitude.
Oh, I know
It
what
may
you
be a
mean.
ritual.
It's like
but
programming.
But it's a ritual that seems to work. And people are more cooperative as a result of it.
Oh, yeah, like
The
the
problem with
attitude.
America, the reason why a lot of Europeans and a lot of English fans come over here and sneer at American society, I think that's not valid. I think American society is really pretty healthy. I mean, it's really
We should
strong.
point out that Stuart is American,
Hey.
and we're English. There's a big difference.
Stuart reads Time magazine every week. So his political views are formed during that time.
No, but the point is, I live outside of America, and I know all about the ugly American,
Yeah.
which is a totally unfounded myth. Americans are less ugly than most other people in the world.
Hey.
And the thing about America is that the culture is not very nice. You turn on the television, you get blasted.
You get the
with
same
advertising.
thing, yeah.
So culturally, America sucks.
Yeah.
It's one of the ugliest countries socially in the world and culturally. But as far as just the way it works, it's very productive.
Yeah.
So it's it doesn't really produce anything that's attractive. Aesthetically, America is very ugly.
Yeah. So you guys are like referring to when it consuming itself, the consumerism in general, mass production.
It's unbelievable the amount of.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
The whole country is geared to consumer production. It seems.
And also throwing things away immediately.
Instantly disposable. Now you drive along like ocean front here, and the plasticity of the place. And when we're driving it along it tonight, I was thinking of. I was looking at, these Sunoco, Texaco,
That's America.
It's so ugly and it's so repulsive. And I was thinking about driving through the middle of France and how beautiful and serene and European and old and cultural it is. And, the difference in the two worlds, one is this and one is that. And, I don't want to make a value judgment on the two, but you can decide for yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's really different.
I think it's the complacency as well in society when everything is so prearranged and so ritualized. Whereas countries like Italy, France and Germany are torn by strikes and strife and sort of revolutionary spirit. Mm-hmm. America isn't. Because there's a complacency here in people that is it's due to this consumer sort of paranoia that people have. They constantly have to produce and buy, produce, eat. There's no kind of strife here. There's no sort of social tension.
I disagree. There's a lot of strife here. There's a lot of, I don't know about strife, but there's a lot of striving. People really work hard to achieve all those material things. All these English people, because they don't have washing machines in England, they come to America and they say that every house has a washing machine, several televisions, every kid has a car. And basically they're jealous, and they think that America is too material, has too many goodies for the people to play with, and is all wrapped up in consumerism. The fact of it is that Americans live better lives because there's just more to do in America, more things to
to work for,
I have to
strive for,
disagree.
more toys and
I
gadgets.
don't think Americans lead better lives at all. They have more things. They have more things because they're told to buy more things. I don't think they really want them.
What do you think causes that? Okay, number one, because we're richer. Okay, because we're a richer country to begin with. All right, but what they're talking about is something that I think they see as being kind of negative. You know,
I don't see the entire thing as being negative. Well, I've lived here longer than Stewart. You know, I lived in America for 6 years. You know, I've been here the last year. I've seen a lot of it, and I've lived in England. I've lived all over the place. I talk from experience. I'm not talking out of my hat. I think that American people have great potential, and it was a dynamic country, probably at the turn of the century. I think in the last 20 years, there's been such a, since the Second World War, there's been so much push on the consumer to buy, consume, turn out more, dispose, buy, and so on. That cycle's been going on for so long now that it's sort of reached the zenith, and I think things are turning away, starting to decay. And I think it's going through a period of decay, but I think that it is a great country, and that it will, it'll go through that. There's always a cycle happening. You know, Britain's in a sort of very low point right now. But
Britain is advanced in this cycle of decay. These English people are talking very smugly about America, but England is about 10 stages deeper into the decay.
It went through a period of overconsumption,
and it's not getting any better. England is just deeper in the hole. England is really struggling now. The social services are breaking down. The society is fighting itself. The classes are jealous of each other and are fighting each other. The country is paralyzed by strikes. And culturally, okay, great music comes out of England. That's why I live there. That's why I actually identify more with England than I do with America. But that doesn't, I mean, for most things, the country just isn't as socially effective. It doesn't accomplish as much. It doesn't provide the people who live there with as much out of life.
It isn't able to. It just doesn't have the raw materials available.
It doesn't have the spirit of ingenuity and looking for a better way of doing something to make the customer come to you, and all that commercial.
That's the difference between people. That's the difference between American and English, and that's something I don't like about it. That sort of ingenuous enthusiasm gets right up my nose. English people don't. That's why I don't think I could ever live here again, because I don't. That kind of thing is very shallow to me.
English people are cold and unenthusiastic about just about everything.
If I have the choice, I'd have to live in England. I couldn't live in America, whether it's a better life for me or my family or not.
Yeah.
England is just a place to be.
Do you think that the English people have different characters, and that one that you think is better?
I think when you live on an island like England, with a history of the way it's got, you're very, very English. I mean, America's so wide, there's so many types that there's no such thing as an American, really. But an Englishman is actually pretty well formed.
You mean physically?
You've got physically, mentally.
Are you guys perfect Anglo-Saxons? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, we're pretty English. Yeah.
You both are pretty English.
Yeah. With English attitudes, and we love England. I mean, I don't want to live anywhere else.
Yeah. And being American is what, an attitude? It's obviously not. It's obviously not genetic, and we've got such a huge
No, but the American kids are brought up in a certain way. The American ethic, the American movies. In England, kids are taught something completely different. They're taught that if you can get ahead without working hard, and businessmen talk to each other over their cocktails and talk about how much work they don't have to do, how much work they've avoided. That's the general atmosphere regarding work in England, is how much you can avoid. And people are really lazy, and they're not committed to their jobs. Whereas in America, like Andy calls it, ingenuous. But whether it's ingenuous or not, people do work harder.
Why should people get committed to producing yet another Toyota a day? Is there any life any richer because you produce another Toyota? Why should you enjoy work? You're working for the idiot at the top, Big deal.
Exactly the attitude that
I do not want to work for the
You don't want to enjoy work.
I want to work for me.
That's right.
Me. Nobody else.
And where better to do it than
Stuff the capitalists.
Jesus Christ, you're sitting in the most capitalist country in the world.
Absolutely.
Where the individual can accomplish the most for himself.
Absolutely, taking money.
Everywhere else. Both ways, it's better here. I'm trying to talk these guys into moving into America. Having up some musicians from England.
The fact is, we go around America and we play everywhere, and we play to young Americans, and we see the state they're in. So everything he's saying just doesn't count for much.
So you think
we see the state that most people are in.